Paul, thank you very much for joining us. Just want to begin then by asking you why you see community-based adaptation as an important aspect of the effort to tackle climate change.
Well, adaptation is local, and most of the action happens at the local level, where the people are, how people do their farming and water and so forth, day-to-day lives. I think that's where it's going to start in terms of disrupting their livelihoods. So it's the right place to start in terms of focusing on what are the practical aspects of adaptation. And
there's been lots of talk here at this conference about the importance of mainstreaming CBA. In your experience, is it taken seriously by policymakers and within the UN circles?
In the UN circles, definitely, because everything that we do at the national level and intergovernmental level, it all filters down to people and citizens and so forth. So there is that need, I think, to make sure that the two levels tie together very seamlessly. And I'm sure that for people working on the ground also, they want to be able to transform national economies and livelihoods and development at the end of the day.
And what's the status of the talks regarding this issue? We've just come out of Durban towards the end of last year. How do they relate to community-based adaptation? How are they incorporated in the talks?
Out of Durban, I think the most relevant aspects of adaptation work are through the national adaptation planning processes. We're in the process of developing technical guidelines on how national governments should design adaptation plans across all levels, from national economies down to the local level. So there is a recognition and very serious solicitation of inputs from the community people to see how do we integrate this information into the planning process. Includes indigenous peoples, marginalized communities, gender, children. From this conference, we found out that there's a lot of activity now starting on children. So we'll look into that to see how can we also integrate issues of children into the national planning.
And what do you see as some of the big challenges ahead for this movement, if you like, this effort to incorporate CBA into the mainstream?
I think the challenge is to keep it real. There's a lot of academics, a lot of international NGOs and so forth that do very good work. And I think the challenge is we have to retain emphasis on local communities and help them to cope with climate change and sort of maybe do less talking and less studies and actually do more practical work. I know that a lot of students are involved in this, and they do need to help us advance the science, but at the same time we do need to find a way to help communities in practice.
And what would your vision be for the future, if, both within the UN process and in terms of applying this in the field? Where would you like to see us in 5 years' time?
I think we have to get closer to the communities themselves. There are a lot of people working with communities here, but there are no community representatives per se. I think the more we can bridge the gap between the work and the people that are direct beneficiaries, I think that will be a huge advance.
And what will it take within the UN process specifically to kind of capture that sentiment? Are there specific negotiations or specific moves that can happen in order to achieve that?
We're very country-driven, so we rely on what countries are telling us is important to them. And I think we see more and more of that, where the youth are very involved in the negotiations. We have indigenous people being represented in the negotiations. So I think the more we see of that and the more involvement that rural communities make into the process, I think the more real it's going to get.
Paul, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Right, see you next time.